He had no illusions, no fairy tales, no wishful thinking. Niccolò Machiavelli, the man who taught kings how to rule and enemies how to fear, left behind one truth so raw, so uncomfortable, that most men will never have the courage to face it. What if everything you were told about what women want was a lie? What if the real answer was buried inside a 500-year-old manuscript, written by the most ruthless political mind in human history? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear could shatter how you see every relationship you've ever had. Welcome back. This is where we go beneath the surface of human behavior, where we speak the truths that most people are too afraid to say out loud. Today, we're standing at the crossroads of philosophy, evolutionary psychology, and the cold, unfiltered writings of Niccolò Machiavelli. We're going to unpack what Machiavelli actually believed about female nature, why modern psychology quietly agrees with him, and what this means for you as a man trying to navigate relationships, attraction, and influence in a world that rarely tells you the truth. This is not about hating women. This is not about manipulation. This is about understanding, because you cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. Let's begin. Most people know Machiavelli from one book, The Prince. Written in 1513, a brutal, honest blueprint for political power, Machiavelli didn't write what people wanted to hear. He wrote what actually worked. He watched rulers rise and collapse. He studied human nature the way a surgeon studies a body, without sentiment, without bias, without the warm comfort of illusion. And here is what separated Machiavelli from every self-help writer, every relationship coach, every philosopher who came before him. He never asked, "What should people be?" He asked, "What are people actually?" That distinction is everything. Because most men walk into relationships carrying a version of a woman that only exists inside their own heads. They project loyalty, consistency, deep emotional devotion. And then they are blindsided when reality refuses to match the fantasy. Machiavelli would look at that man and say, "You failed before you even started. You never studied your terrain." He believed that misunderstanding human nature, and specifically female nature, was one of the gravest strategic errors any man could make. So what did he actually believe? Let's go deeper. Machiavelli made a foundational observation about human beings. People are drawn to strength. People are repelled by weakness. This was not a moral judgment. It was simply an observation. Like gravity, you don't have to like it, it is still true. He wrote in The Prince that men are so simple, so governed by immediate necessity, that whoever wishes to deceive will always find someone willing to be deceived. Now apply that to attraction. What Machiavelli grasped centuries before evolutionary psychologists coined the term hypergamy is that women are instinctively drawn to men who project power, certainty, and status. Not because women are shallow, but because at a primal, biological level, these signals represent the ability to protect, to provide, to lead. Here is the part that cuts deepest. The part men do not want to hear. A woman's attraction is not primarily driven by how much you love her. It is driven by how much she respects you. Love without respect is not attraction. It is pity. And pity does not sustain desire. Machiavelli watched this unfold constantly in the courts of kings and nobles. The ruler who begged for loyalty received contempt. The ruler who commanded respect received devotion, sometimes even from those who feared him. He called this the difference between being loved and being feared. And he argued it is far safer to be feared because love is conditional, but respect is structural. It is built, brick by brick, through how you carry yourself every single day. Modern psychology backs this up in ways that would have made Machiavelli smile. Dr. David Buss, an evolutionary psychologist at the University of Texas, conducted one of the largest studies ever done on human mate preference, spanning 37 cultures across 6 continents. His findings were unambiguous. Women across every culture consistently prioritize resource acquisition, ambition, and social dominance in a partner. These are not learned preferences. They are hardwired. This does not mean women are calculating. It means the female brain evolved across hundreds of thousands of years to seek men who could lead, protect, and provide, because that is what guaranteed the survival of children. And here is where Machiavelli's insight becomes almost frightening in its precision. He understood that how a man presents himself matters more than what he actually feels inside. Sit with that. A man can be deeply in love, committed, loyal, emotionally present, but if he presents himself as needy, uncertain, desperate for validation, that love becomes invisible. The woman's subconscious cannot override the signal of weakness, no matter how hard she tries, no matter how much she wants to. Machiavelli wrote that in political life, the appearance of virtue matters more than virtue itself. The parallel in relationships is this: the appearance of strength matters far more than the inner chaos you are concealing. A man who is struggling but composed is infinitely more magnetic than a man who is thriving but starving for approval. Composure, frame, self-possession, these were Machiavellian principles. And they are powerfully, undeniably attractive. Let me tell you a story, fictional, but built on truths Machiavelli would recognize in an instant. Two men lived in a small village in Renaissance Italy. One was a prince, not particularly handsome, not particularly kind, but he moved through the world with absolute certainty. He made decisions without flinching. When he entered a room, the room changed. The other man was a peasant, warm, generous, desperately, completely in love with the same woman. He brought her flowers. He wrote her letters. He told her every single night how much he needed her. And here is what happened. The woman, intelligent, warm-hearted, not cruel by any measure, chose the prince. Not because she failed to see the peasant's love. She saw it clearly. But love that comes soaked in need does not feel like a gift. It feels like a burden. The peasant's devotion whispered, "I am nothing without you." The prince's attention declared, "I have chosen you. And I could have chosen differently." Machiavelli would say the peasant made the fatal error of showing his hand before the game had even begun. The prince never begged for a place in her world. He simply occupied space with such unshakable confidence that she moved toward him the way water moves toward lower ground, naturally, inevitably, without force. This is the Machiavellian truth most men spend entire decades learning the hard way. Now here is where most people misread Machiavelli, and this part is critical. He was not preaching cruelty. He was not saying be cold, be distant, never love. He was saying something far more precise: never allow your hunger for another person to become the foundation your identity rests upon. There is a vast difference between a man who chooses to love deeply and a man who cannot survive without the person he loves. One is strength, one is dependency. And dependency, no matter how beautifully dressed in the language of romance, will eventually corrode attraction from the inside out. The Machiavellian man loves fully, but he also has a mission. A direction, a life that would continue, powerfully and purposefully, with or without any single person in it. That quality, that wholeness, that unshakable sense of self, is what creates attraction that lasts. Because a woman does not want to be your entire world. She wants to be a chosen part of a world that is already rich, already purposeful, already alive.